Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Thursday and happy Release Party Thursday. So excited to see you all here. It's always a good time to have some of the engineers and program managers from the VS Code team here to chat about this month's release. So if you haven't been following along, we had a release drop last Thursday. So hopefully you all have had a chance to check that out. And I'd love to see y'all in the chat drop your predictions for what features we will be highlighting today. I think we already have one from David. Good to see you here. Improvements and extensions, terminal and editor. Great guesses. We'll find out if you're correct. We've got a lot of good mornings. Hello, everyone. Let me know where you're watching from. Hello, Bavik. Good morning. We have greetings from Johannesburg in South Africa. Hello, Frederico. Good to see you. Always a classic hello world. Gotta love that. Adam, good to see you as well. I'm so excited. This is my first VS Code Live. That's awesome. So happy to have you here. We do live streams every single Thursday. But we do release parties every second Thursday of the month. So that's a little bit different. If you've been tuning into these, you've probably noticed that these have come about a week after the release has gone live. So instead of doing the first Thursday, which sometimes coincided with the actual release drop, we are now doing it the second Thursday. So you have about a week to try out the new features and then come join us and have fun on the release party. Hello, Kelvin from Nigeria. So excited to see you all. This is always so fun. Good evening from India. I love seeing people come from all over the world. Hopefully this is relatively time zone inclusive and you all are able to tune in at a good time for you all. From Yemen and Middle East. This is great. We really have people from all over. From the Netherlands. Oh, this is so fun. Okay. Cool. Well, so if you all are new to the release parties, basically what we're going to be doing today here is just a quick rundown of a few of the highlights from the release. And we have people from the VS Code team who are actually going to be demoing those features. So it's always a good time and a great chance for you to ask your questions to the engineers and to the program managers who worked firsthand on these features. So with that, we also like to start out these release parties with a big thank you to our contributors. For those of you who don't know, VS Code is open source, so we do rely a lot on our contributors for that. So if we want to throw up the thank you notes, this is a section that is always in our release notes. It is last section for a big thank you to everyone. We list out the contributors that we had who helped make this release a possibility. So I'm just going to do a quick scroll through because there's too many people to individually call out, but thank you to everyone who helped out with the issue tracking, all these different pull request contributions to the language service, the GitHub pull requests, and the debug adapter protocol. Really appreciate all of your work. If your name's on this list and you're watching, thank you, thank you, thank you. And if it's not, always looking for more contributors. So really appreciate everything that y'all do. And then kind of on that thank you note, there's one other plug that I want to do, and that is that we officially announced our new extension authors community that we have hosted on GitHub discussions. So we have a blog post for this that the link is currently up on your screen. Definitely check it out. But basically, this is just a new community that we have for extension authors to gather, connect with the community, ask their questions, answer other people's questions, and show off your hard work. If you use VS Code, obviously you know that the magic is really in those extensions, and we couldn't have such an extensive extension marketplace. That is a tongue twister without all the extension authors to make it possible. So check out this blog post, and if you are an extension author or interested in getting started, definitely head over to our new community. Okay, so with that, let's go ahead and see who our first presenter is going to be today. So first up, we have Joyce. If you've been on the release parties in the last few months, you've seen her. Welcome back, Joyce.
Thank you so much for having me back, Olivia.
Of course. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. What do you have demoing for us today?
All right. So today I'm going to be sharing a few updates to VS Code for the web.
Okay.
And so for anyone who's not super familiar, VS Code for the web is VS Code running in your browser this works regardless of what device you're on, and also works across various different browsers. And so here I've got vscode.dev, and this is just the base instance. You can open a local folder. You can also open a remote repository. And for folks who aren't aware, vscode.dev has rich integration with GitHub repositories. And so you can open any GitHub repo that you like directly in your browser and just navigate to that. So one of the things that I want to show today is this new Chrome extension that we've released that makes it easier to open your GitHub repositories in vscode.dev. So I've already got it installed here. So you see remove from Chrome, and this is what the extension looks like. And the way that it works is that I can just open a new tab, say code, and then I can search for a repository on GitHub. So for example, here I want to open VS Code repo.
Ooh.
And then if I hit enter, that takes me directly to the Microsoft VS Code repo where all the magic happens, directly in my browser. And that allows me to start browsing, searching, even editing and committing directly from my browser without having to clone that repo locally. And so you can imagine that this is awesome for open source. It is currently Hacktoberfest is ongoing. So if you ever want to just, start contributing to a repo, browsing around, trying to understand that code base a little bit better, it's super easy to do this. If you have a repo that you work with locally, you can also have multiple different checkouts in your browser going at the same time for different branches. And so we really wanted to make it super easy for you to get into your GitHub repos, and this Chrome extension is a big part of that story. This extension also contributes a shortcut, Control Dot or Command Dot if you're on Mac, to open a current GitHub repository in vscode.dev as well. So please try it out. Let us know if you have any feedback. We have already taken a couple of community contributions. Thank you so much for that. And we're happy to take more. So looking forward to your feedback on that.
Cool. One quick question I have. So when you were pulling up that repo, it kind of already had a list of repos generated. How does the extension choose what it's showing you?
Yeah, so that is all populated from your browser history. So any GitHub repo that you visited before is going to appear in that list if there's a match for it. If there's not a match for it, you can also just type in the repo owner / repo name, and that will also take you directly to that repo in vscode.dev.
Awesome. And I assume if you're just logged into GitHub, then you will have all your permissions to that repo that your user ID usually does. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So that's the first thing I wanted to show. And then the second thing I wanted to show is this continue working on feature here. And so I'm just going to go ahead and open a new repo. And so here I'm actually going to open the repo containing the source code for that Chrome extension that I just showed you. And when I say Chrome extension, it works in both Edge and Chrome. And we just got an issue yesterday for Firefox support. So hopefully that'll be coming online pretty soon. And so here, as you can see, is it's a pretty small repo for this Chrome extension if you ever wanted to try contributing to it. And very often what I'll do is I'll start working on a repo in my browser. So here, for example, I actually want to rename this function because I merged in a PR yesterday, and now that function doesn't quite do what I want. And so I could say github2.dev, and that's probably a more accurate name. And then since there's been a couple of PRs that have come in recently, I need to bump the version because I want to publish a new version of this extension. And then at some point, I might decide that I want to do something in the terminal. For example, I might want to load a node REPL and start running code. And as y'all are probably aware, vscode.dev doesn't currently support running node code in your browser. But what I can do at this point is select continue working on. And so this is a feature that gives you the option to continue working on your current repository, but in a different context. So for example, here I've got this create new code space option that's from the GitHub Codespaces extension. And when I go ahead and select that, I'm given the option to pick a couple of different machine types. And then now my code space is being created. It opens in a new tab. And once that, I'm just actually going to put this side by side here. And what you'll see is that after I'm done connecting to my code space, one neat thing about the continue working on feature is that your uncommitted changes actually travel with you to the target workspace. So continue working on has been around for a little while, but that integration where your working changes come with you is new. And so the first time that you try to do this, you will be asked to sign into our services. And then eventually your changes should appear. And that is, yeah. So right here, you see that I didn't really have to do anything, wait a little bit, and then my changes appeared. And these are the exact changes that I had on the left-hand side, and they've just come automatically with me to my code space. So that is a little convenience feature that we think is going to be helpful because, otherwise I'd have to either commit this to a branch, which maybe I don't want to do because it's still a work in progress, or I would have to commit it and then, do a revert and then a hard push or something on the other side. And now that context just kind of travels with you. So
Cool.
Some other options that we have, I mentioned continue on in a code space, but we also have additional options like cloning a repository locally and opening it on the desktop, as well as reopening it on the desktop. And when you are already on the desktop, so I'm going to go ahead and pick reopen on the desktop. And what this does is that if you've got the GitHub repositories extension installed on desktop, this just recreates your virtual workspace, on VS Code for the desktop. So it still doesn't clone it locally, but it opens the VS Code instance that you have installed on your local machine with the same virtual repository setup. And so if I go ahead and pick that, you can see that it says it launched VS Code on my computer. And after a little bit, my repository opens up. And very shortly, you should see the file explorer populate.
While that's loading, so you mentioned a little bit about how, it doesn't actually clone. I think one of the really cool things about having these release parties and having the engineers on is that we can see a little bit, look under the hood of what's going on. So can you go into a little bit more detail about what exactly is going on behind the scenes when you click that continue working on?
Yeah, so what's going on here is that when I say continue working on, I get this list of options, and these are all populated by extensions. So here we've got create your code space, clone locally, reopen on the desktop. And then when I'm in desktop, if you have the dev containers extension installed, you also get this additional option to continue working on in a container volume. So you can clone that repository in a container volume. And this is great if, for example, you've got a dev container file already predefined and you have certain dependencies that you want to have automatically installed, so you don't have to do that manually by yourself. So all of those options for continue working on are contributed by extensions today. And what we're doing with the uncommitted changes is we look at whatever is being tracked by source control. We temporarily upload that to a service that the VS Code team ships and owns, and then we delete them immediately from your service once you've actually popped over to your destination workspace. So that's really how all of that works. We don't keep those changes around for longer than we have to. It's really just a transient storage spot for now.
Okay, cool. So during that loading, that's kind of what's happening, is going to that temporary service. And then once it's loaded, it's like, okay, we don't need that anymore.
Exactly.
Cool. Makes sense. There's one question in the chat about can you run code on the browser? And you showed code spaces. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that and how that enables you to be able to do that.
Yeah, so there's actually a couple of different ways that you can run code in the browser. So one obvious option is with GitHub Code Spaces that provisions a virtual machine for you, and it's VS Code backed by a virtual machine, and you can run your code in that way. We also now have support for Bases, and the VS Code server, which came out, I believe, a couple of months ago. And my teammate Connor worked on that, and that pretty much allows you to SSH into a machine from vscode.dev and work with that remote machine as though it was just another virtual machine in your browser as well. And then a third option that also came out with this past release is my coworker Dirk worked on experimental support for running Python in your browser. So I don't have it installed right now, but there is an extension that you should definitely go check out where you can start a Python REPL in vscode.dev with a GitHub repository and just kind of run your code there. It is super cool. And I think it's an incredible advance in in the capabilities of vscode.dev. So definitely check that out.
Awesome. Thank you for that overview. That was great. Patrick, thank you for the question. Definitely a couple of different options for you to check out there to get that code running on your browser. And I do believe that in the release notes, we actually have a little bit more about that Python extension that Joyce was talking about. So definitely make sure to check that out if you're interested in learning a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Cool.
That's all I had for you, Olivia.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joyce. Really appreciate having you on and excited to see where else this continue working on will go.
Thank you.
Take care. All right, so thank you, Joyce. Up next, we're going to have Johannes on to chat a little bit about his work. Hello, how's it going?
Hello, it's not too bad. Good day, good morning, good afternoon from Zurich in Switzerland.
Oh, yes, it's not morning for you, is it? What time is it there?
No, it's almost getting dark. Well, not yet.
Oh, no.
It's like 5 p.m.
VS Code at
2
dark.
more
I love
hours of
it.
daylight. Yeah.
Well, thank you
VS
for
Code
coming
worldwide.
on.
Yeah.
We really appreciate it. What do you have to show us today?
I have something very little to show today, which is a small refinement of the UI or a small completion of the UI, which is to allow to hide things with a right-click hide. So as you know, we have buttons in the UI. And if you don't like a certain button, you can just say, I don't want to see it. So you can say, this button, it opens changes with previous revisions. I don't really know what it does. It came with an extension that I installed. And now I can just right-click and hide it. And then I don't see it anymore. And this cleans up my menus. And what happens when you hide something, it's not gone for good. It will just move into the overflow, into the ... menu. And there you can still access it. This is a pattern that actually works throughout VS Code. So for instance, if you don't want to see the extensions view, you can also right-click it and you can hide it, and then it's gone. To get it back, you can just recheck it, and then you have it. And it works the same way with actions. So if I right-click here, I can just recheck those, and then they are back. Another thing, if I've gone more than, if I've hidden a few actions, so let's do that, I can also always right-click and say reset menu, and then all come back. This works in various menus. So for instance, let's say in the Explorer, I don't really create folders, I only create files. So let me remove that, and I don't really need to refresh, so that is gone. And let's pick a notebook, and let's say I'm not really splitting myself that often, so let's hide this to get a bit more visual piece. Yeah, so this basically complements our story of hiding things, similar to how you hide things from the activity bar, or how you can hide things from the bottom panel. You can now also hide buttons and various toolbars. And yeah, it's a small thing. We believe it's quality of life. And then there's the one big reset button. If you have lost count of what you have hidden, you can always go to the command palette, press F1, and then select reset all menus. Okay. And this is the big, oh, help, what did I do button? And then everything is back to normal. And you have your you're back to square one.
That's your lifesaver. If you were just like testing this out and then you're like, crap, what did I just do? Did this used to be here? Am I going crazy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. This is definitely, oh, we're developing this feature and I don't know how to get out.
Yeah. What have I done?
What have I done? Yeah. A nice characteristic of this feature is if you, for instance, use VS Code Desktop and VS Code Web, as we have seen it in the previous demo, all these changes, they roam. So if you're logged in and if you use settings sync, then you hide a button in desktop and it will also be hidden in VS Code Web, or if you have also a Windows machine, or if you work on a virtual machine in Linux, as long as you use settings sync, all of these customizations, they follow you along, which is very useful if you run VS Code in multiple environments, like the web and desktop.
Awesome. So you don't have to do anything, for just signed into sync settings, and then when you close out your session, it'll be all set?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, just sign in. Don't hide the account icon like I do. So make sure you sign in. On this instance, I'm not. I use VS Code Insiders, and there I'm signed in, and then everything roams with you, and there's smooth sailing.
When I first started, I somehow accidentally hid the account in VS Code, and then I like thought I was going crazy because I was like, "Where is this? Like, I know that there's a way." So
Yeah,
it's always good to
yeah,
know that there's a way to just reset everything and just easily
yeah.
right click to
In
have
doubt, right click and then
Mhm.
uncheck or check items.
Save a
And,
life.
yeah, save. It's a lifesaver. Yeah.
Awesome. No, I think that this is great. I mean, even though, you said that this is a small thing, I think one of the best things about VS Code is how customizable it is to what you want your developer experience to be. So being able to, if you're someone who's very minimalist, to be able to hide those extra icons that you don't really, use a lot or you don't care about or you just want to see in that overflow menu is really big and really just kind of keeps contributing to the story of having a customizable IDE editor that basically lets you have this whole experience.
Yes, and there's a little bit of a cliffhanger. We're also working on a feature called VS Code Profiles. That is in Insiders, VS Code Green. So there you will have side-by-side different customization stories. So you can say, oh, in this project, I work on JavaScript files. So I want to have the following views and buttons designed like this. And in the other project, I do machine learning explorations with PHP. And then you have a different set of configurations and you can have both windows side by side. And so this is a little bit of a sneak preview. You can have it today if you use VS Code Insiders. And I guess this will be coming to a release party anytime soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that plug. For those of y'all who are watching, you might not be familiar with Insiders. So the normal VS Code that's blue is going to be that stable VS Code. So that's going to have all your good stuff that's stable, ready to ship. But then we also have green VS Code, which is that Insider. So that's going to have some more of your preview, your experimental features where you can try some things out, give us your feedback. So if what Johannes just mentioned sounds interesting to you, definitely download that, check it out. But excited to see where that journey takes us and will definitely be featured in a future release party.
Yeah, okay. And VS Code Insiders is pretty stable. We use it to develop VS Code, so it cannot be so bad, right?
That's actually a really big question we get is, do VS Code engineers use VS Code to develop VS Code?
Of course, yeah. And we use Insiders, and this is stable, and this is why I'm not logged in, right? So yeah, I am always on Insiders, and if it's not good, we spin off a new Insider. So usually Insiders comes out daily. Mm-hmm. If it comes out more than once a day, something went wrong. So yeah.
Cool. No, that's a great plug because I think it's a lot of things, a lot of people here might not know about that. So it's a great way to kind of get even more into the VS Code ecosystem and try out some other features. Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Johannes. We really appreciate having you on. And hopefully we'll have you on in the future to talk about some more of those profiles.
Yeah.
Take care. All right. So next up, we have Harald coming on. So let's see what he's got for us today.
Ta-da.
There you are.
Yeah.
It's like he should be summoned any moment now.
Yes.
How you doing?
Good. Was sick yesterday, so I was really hoping to make it just through the night to get on today. So now I'm better. So
we appreciate you being a trooper to be here with us today, as always. All right. So what do you have planned to show us?
Yeah, so I'm presenting Ladislav's work, who couldn't make it, but we've been working together on a ton of Git improvements, and we've been shipping a lot. So if we're going to share my screen, there.
There we go. That was like a perfect snap, and it was there.
Right. So good. No, I don't know what's happened now. So this is the first one I'm going to show is nested Git repositories. So you already have something open, but to just give you a sense, this has been one of the big upvoted feature requests. And shout out to our community who's been coming in and helping us prioritize and filing good issues. So you see a really, really interesting issue. A lot of discussions on it, and lots of people really wanting this because the way basically multiple Git repositories help people to work on microservices, to use it as modules, to use it as all kind of different things. There's also Git submodules, which you might want to check out if you depend on nested Git repositories, which isn't as ideal. So submodules make it a bit easier. But now, since the latest version, we actually support the nested Git repositories. And the way I demo it is actually we use this. We use this in our own website. So we have basically these VS Code docs repository, which is open source, which you can contribute to if you see any gaps in our documentation or anywhere else. You can actually contribute to that. And I'm working on a Git intro there right now. And then we have the Git website. So right now, the website, basically what it does, it checks out the website repository, but then there's a command in there which pulls in the different depending repositories that are split out and pulls it into one repository. So the way I can work in VS Code docs while I keep also the website open. So this wouldn't have worked before. Before, I would only have seen the website because that's Git repository that's on the higher up level, and then it wouldn't have discovered GitHub docs. So now I can actually work in here, do my thing, do separate commits, and everything will just stay in sync. So that is really cool. And then the next one.
I am curious, actually, in the chat.
Yeah.
Let me know if y'all are using a setup like this, with either submodules or these multiple repositories, and if this is a feature that's going to be really useful for you.
Yeah, I think I would definitely use it because I have some cases have dependent projects like a UI and a backend, and they're microservices and they're in different spots. So it can definitely help in some cases.
For sure.
So the next one is using SSH keys with passphrase. So this one has been another long-standing issue, you see. So the last one I showed was 256 thumbs up, which is a pretty good number in the VS Code repo, and then the next one is 302. So again, a case we made that really should come in if you have a feature request, find a feature request you really want to have, and add your thumbs up there. So we definitely keep an eye on those and ship what we can to close these gaps. In this case, the gap was actually really severe. So if you use SSH key with a passphrase, what the recommended way to use them is use SSH agent. So the SSH agent will run in the background and basically provide the passphrase you entered in a secure way, so you can always use the Git connection. But some people apparently are in a setup where they cannot use SSH agent. And what happens then is that the VS Code in the past only got stuck. So because we didn't have a way to prompt you, and what we added now, so just to give you an idea, it's hard to demo because to demo it, you have to wipe your machine of all SSH keys. And I didn't want to do that.
We won't make you do that.
But imagine, if you have that set up, you will know, and then you will get a prompt. But I also want to point you to how to use SSH agent. If you run into that, check out the github.com docs on adding your SSH key to GitHub account, which you probably did if you use an SSH passphrase. But then there's also a section is about adding it to the SSH agent, which I can see here. The agent is mentioned here as well. So make sure you do that, because it's passwords don't become better when you enter them every time again and again. So the best passwords you don't have to enter a lot. So it really makes it a lot easier. So any questions?
There is one that's kind of related, not completely, but it's Git related. They asked if they'll be able to see pull requests and issues in VS Code, and we do have an extension for that. So I don't know if you want to do a quick plug for that.
Yes. Maybe go here. Yes. If you check it out, so I'm right now. What happened to my? It's like I zoomed in too much. If I'm fine with that again. It's the demo gods. Yeah, so we do have a GitHub pull request extension. Actually, that's if you look for it, get a pull request extension and issues, it provides a built-in view of all the open pull requests and in VS Code. And I see if I can quickly set up in the background for later, and we can show it off. But overall, it's about exactly what you asked. It's showing pull requests and issues. It lets you create pull requests from a branch. It lets you then review that pull request within VS Code, within your code that you actually work in, which is amazing. And then it lets you merge that pull request back into main when you're done. You can also, really interesting quality of life features, create a branch and pull requests from an issue where it just opens up the branch for you and already populates it with the basic data from the issue. So there's a ton of nice flows built in that make it really nice that I can't show right now. But I'll come back to that.
Okay. So, yeah, no, I definitely want to just do a plug for that extension too, because it honestly makes reviewing PRs so much easier. I hate reviewing and leaving comments like actually in GitHub. It just like, I don't like it. So actually having it like in your VS Code and being able to see that code and pull it down and all that is huge and makes it so much easier to just leave comments and actually test it out and see it in a more developer friendly way.
Yeah. And it's really nice because you can stay within the editor where everything just works. You can navigate the code. You can see all the context that VS Code adds. So it's a lot easier to parse. Next one is
other questions real quick, if that's okay. We're getting kind of a couple on SSH. Okay, so someone said SSH agent is fine for most cases, but is there a way to handle SSH with password only without the SSH key?
Oh, that's a very deep question. Handle SSH with password only with SSH key. I would assume SSH key always needs the key is what you run the password against. So I don't know. That's more of a Git question. We do definitely handle now the passphrase, but I don't know. I would have to look it up.
Okay, cool. Good question though, because that's a very unique scenario. We always love hearing these kind of different edge cases that people have for why you're using our different scenarios.
Yes.
So this question, can we commit live changes to a repo? Frederico, you asked that a couple times. I'm not sure if I fully understand what you mean by live changes.
Yes.
Like if you mean live share.
Maybe you can clarify what live changes mean. So you can definitely. So usually the way it works, you make an edit. Show it over here. So hello world. That's there's Copilot completing my thoughts. So you save it, and then it would show up here in the changes. And that's what you can commit. This is already now an unstaged change, real-time changes. Still not sure what it means in the sense of code. So this is now a saved file, an update file, and I can go now and edit it to the stage changes, and now I could commit it. So there's no live stream where you keep editing and we make commits. There's an extension Git docs if you want to try it out that will basically, as you save files, it will bundle them up as commits and just auto-commit them for you. We're looking into that. Maybe that's what you mean.
Cool. Yeah. So Frederico, if that didn't answer, let us know, and we'll pull you back up. Another question on SSH. Do SSH keys with passphrase work when using remote development when connecting to a remote machine? I know this is kind of getting out of the whole Git SSH demo you're having, but if you know the answer, definitely.
It should be. Yeah, mostly if you have containers, if you work remotely, we funnel all the SSH, the Git, every important aspect through the remote environment. So that should all work out of the box.
Okay, cool. And then one more back to Git. Is there a way to bulk commit / push in VS Code?
Bulk commit, yes. So there's a... So you mean now that we have all these multiple repositories, can I commit and push to all? So there is a fetch from all remotes. There isn't, I think, a pull from all. So I assume you mean now that you have multiple repositories open, can I push pull from all of them at the same time? I don't think there is. So, but you would still commit in each single one of them and then pull and push with each single one of them.
Right. But so you can bulk commit if you have, 10 files change on one repo, you can kind of commit those all at once. But for each individual repo, you still need to do that action on each repo. Okay, cool.
Right. So I will check if there's already a feature request open that you can add your thumbs up to that.
Cool. Awesome. Okay. Any other things that you want to show us, Harald?
Yes. I got a pull before checkout. So pull before checkout is an interesting one. It's a new setting. So it's pull before. It's already on for me because it's great. So anytime you switch a branch that doesn't have outgoing commits, is fast forwarded. So in this case, the flow is often that we work on our PRs and our topic branches. We're done with the work and we want to switch back to main, start something new. So the way you should work in the past, you switch to main, then you pulled again, you get the latest changes, and then you created your new branch to work on a new feature. So what pull before checkout does, when you switch to main, VS Code will automatically get all the latest changes from the remote and then apply those to main. So anytime you switch branches and there's no pending edits, it will already be on the latest version that's online. So in this case, I already have it enabled. So now if I switch back to main, which already has some changes, it will automatically go in, check everything out, and now it's already pulled in the latest changes. So it's very transparent. What would have happened if it didn't do that? I would see that there's some changes pending, but now that everything's up to date, it would just work. So it's really a transparent feature that you wouldn't see much other than that you have to do one less step every time you switch branches.
Cool. No, I love that. It's always good to have as seamless of an experience as possible.
Yeah, so that's pull before checkout. It's off by default, but it's anything that I think causes extra traffic, that causes extra network potentially, and that might be costly for the user. There's another one that's that we prompt for is auto fetch, which is that we in the background detect if there's changes online. We also have it off by default because VS Code would cause extra traffic in the background.
Gotcha.
So get those enabled if you like them.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I feel like there's so much Git integration already with VS Code, and a lot of features that you can enable to make it, really customized to whatever your workflow is. So definitely check those out. Check out those release notes to get even more details about those new features.
Yeah. And
this is kind of a preference question, I guess, but we have a question. Would it be easier to use the VS Code, Git integration, or use GitHub Desktop separate of that? Do you have any thoughts on this?
I don't know. Yeah, I like to use Git within the context of my editor. So if it depends on which UI you like, but if you spend a lot of time in VS Code and then switch out to manage things in GitHub Desktop, so I would just try it out using it in VS Code if there's anything missing. It's just one less app you have to have open that you have to switch to and understand, and then all the code changes you would see. So I think from a feature parity, they're mostly the same. They're both good UIs to not think about Git much. You just do your actions, you pull. So they're pretty close in how you work with them on a workflow basis. So it's mostly around VS Code might be closer to the code you're actually looking at. As you edit in VS Code, you still get the Git diffs showing and what's new, what's added, what's removed. So yeah, I think that's the main difference, is that you already get Git functionality within VS Code. So just using more of it might be easier than switching over. And then some people still switch to Git CLI if there's any hard things they have to do, like tagging and doing really intricate remote work where it just makes more sense to know the commands that you're executing and do that on the command line, right?
Mm-hmm. Cool. No, yeah, I think that's a great call out. Let's do one more question. Someone just asked, is there a way to make new repos directly from VS Code?
Yes, actually. So if you are in the source control view and you start a new project, so let me do a new window. So if you are in a new window, what source control will look like, it will ask you to clone a repository or open a folder. So that's already the first way to start from Git. Then if I just open a folder, let's make a new one, go into my developer stuff, demo, party, from that one. And now we have a demo party. We can add a file. Get a file? Yeah. And Git will now already start picking up. So we can initialize the repository here, which would basically just add a Git configuration, but we can also automatically publish to GitHub. So this is already built in. So you can just say, want to sign in? Yes. Oh no, you do the authentication dance. I cannot do it now, but this will take forever. Yeah, but always does it now. All the other authentication stuff worked. Demo gods. Okay, but basically, what happens in this flow? Let's just go back to VS Code. What happens in this flow now? You would get a prompt to how you want to call your repository. It would create it for you, and everything would be just online. So that's one way to go through the flow. And then there's also the initialized repository where you can then later on publish it to GitHub. So any way you start, if there's no remote yet, we can tell you to publish it to GitHub, and that's built in.
Gotcha. Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that it's always great to hear kind of the story that, that VS Code Git integration we do try to make as, seamless as possible from the start to the finish, whether you're cloning it or you're making it repo initially. Cool. All right. So thank you so much for answering all those questions. Is there anything else you want to touch on or show?
Yes, I do. So this is the VS Code repo, and one thing we do as a team a lot is reviewing pull requests from contributors, and they're usually on different repositories. So somebody forked it, created a branch, opened a pull request. So then we have to review it. We have to switch to those branches. So now when you do a fetch, you can fetch from all remotes, but we usually want to fetch from that one remote where they worked on the thing. So previously, we would just fetch from default, which is origin in my case. But now, actually, the list offers you from which specific remote you want to fetch. So if you are working in different repositories by contributions and all that, that makes that a lot easier. So that's just a really small feature improvement that makes these flows a bit smoother. Previously, you could still fetch, but you would need to fetch from all remotes, or you would do it from the CLI.
Gotcha. Well, we got a yay, so that's the right direction.
Yes, it makes the open source contributions much easier. And then the last one is probably just a highlight. So you probably saw me logging into stuff, and you saw me like failing at logging in because I didn't want to go through two-factor auth. Mm-hmm. But we also just recently landed GitHub Enterprise Server Authentication. And that makes especially the GitHub pull request extension that we mentioned a lot easier. So GitHub Enterprise Server is basically, it's an enterprise setup of GitHub that lives on a different server. You have your own GitHub on your own server with its own domain, everything. So previously there was a flow that people contributed, but it wasn't officially supported. So now we landed the official support. It's like the typical OAuth flow. You just log in, you get authentication working. Basically the way to start it, if you have a repository open that is checked out from a GitHub Enterprise Server, if you just enable the GitHub pull request extension, it will just ask you, please log into your GitHub Enterprise Server, and everything will just work out of the box. So that has been one of the most upvoted features. It has been called out a lot, especially in our extension reviews on the marketplace. So we're super happy to have that in for people to try it out. So far, we've been trying it. Everybody who opened the feature, we pinged them if they can try it out, if it works for them. Everybody was super happy. So this is just nice to have if you use GitHub at work and you don't have the typical github.com setup. So that makes a lot.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, lots of good stuff this release. And I'm sure even more stuff's in the pipeline as well. Always trying to make that experience even better.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
That's it.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Harald, for joining. That was a great demo. Definitely a lot of interaction there. People love their Git integration. So thank you so much for coming on. I'm sure we'll see you or Lad, in the future to demo even more features.
Thank you. Happy to have me.
All right. So next up, and last but not least, we have Matt to talk about some Markdown updates. Hey, Matt.
Morning.
How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty well.
Cool. Yeah. Tell us what you got.
Yeah, so I'm going to be showing off some link validation in Markdown, because if you work with Markdown a lot, you've probably gone and accidentally broken some links. This is a really common problem that we have even when working on the VS Code docs. So it's something that we sort of built for ourselves and also think other people will find quite useful as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I cannot tell you how many times I rename an image or something, or I redo something and then I don't update it somewhere else. And then it should and then I go to preview. I'm like, why is nothing loading?
Yeah. So previously you'd have to sort of just look at your preview, test out all the links to make sure they're working. That's not a great experience. So link validation is going to check all of the links to local resources and make sure that they are actually valid. So this would be things like images, file paths, links to other headers that you're going to. It is off by default, but I've gone and turned on the setting here. And we can see that in this Markdown file that I've created, we have 4 problems being reported. And these are all being reported by the link validation. If I go and I look at the first squiggly in the file here, you can see that it's complaining that the file does not exist at the path. And it's going here and trying to find the file here. If I actually look over at the Explorer to see why this file does not exist, we can see that here we have an S on images. And then here we just have the normal version. So if I go and I fix this, that will go and dismiss the error. This would be a common mistake to make if you just go and move around files or mistype the file path, for example. So it's very easy to accidentally break paths. And again, you'd have to go and manually look at the preview to confirm that, oh yes, that image is broken. Let me go and try to fix it. Now in the next case here, we're actually linking to another section of the Markdown file. So we're going to try to link down to this header here, but you can see that this one is also not valid. So it's saying, hey, there's no header found for this. And again, we've just made a simple typo. So I can go in here and actually go and fix that one as well. Now, one helpful thing to mention here is that if you're actually writing these, VS Code will help you autocomplete them and get the right version.
So, with that, basically. Cool.
Yes, and it can also do this with the paths as well. So if I go here and say cat and go and trigger suggestions, this can help you prevent problems. But if you ever go and then like go and break the header, for example, that link will obviously get out of date. Now, in this case down here, we're actually trying to use a link definition. So this is useful if you want to reference a link multiple locations in a Markdown file. You can go and define the links down at the bottom and then reference the link just by using a keyword. In this case, we want it to be called link. And again, this is being identified that there is no link definition found here. It's a problem with the plurals again here, so I can go and fix that. As soon as I go and break either one of these, we'll start getting the errors being reported again. And then I can go and update things and put it back to work where it's going and making everything work properly here. And I can even go and click on this and it'll take me down to the link definition itself.
Ooh.
Now, the final one I want to show off here is that we're linking to another Markdown file down here in our link definition. And in this case, the file does exist. So it's over in the Explorer. But the header that we're linking to in that other file does not exist. So it's telling us, hey, there's not this header over here. I could just trigger suggestions here to actually see the header that I want. So I could say another header and fix that. And then if I navigate over there, you can see that sure enough, that is the correct header name over in that other file. So we're even able to do this validation across files when you're linking to other headers in those files. Now, this feature, again, is off by default because we know there's so many different ways that people are working with Markdown, but you can turn it on very easily. So let me go in here and open up my settings. And you just want the Markdown validate setting. So once you turn on the Markdown validate setting, this will go and just enable all of the link validation you were just seeing. If you're wanting some like finer grained control over what types of things should be validated, you can go and turn on file links or turn off links to fragments in the current file, like we were seeing before, where we were linking to the header. You can also go and make these be either warnings or errors. So if you want it to be even more obvious, instead of the yellow squiggly, you can go and upgrade these into errors. And then finally, if you are working with Markdown that is linking to some file that you know will only exist when the site that you're creating is actually being published, you can go and ignore that link. So let's say I had a link that was like this. You can see that this is a link that is going to a file that does not exist on disk. I could just go and exclude this from link validation, and that would go and for the entire workspace, make sure that that link is not going to be validated. So we think this is something that is going to be super helpful when working on the VS Code docs. The VS Code docs are quite large and they're linking to a lot of other Markdown files, but you'd be surprised at how often, even for simple READMEs, these paths get out of date. It's very easy for you to accidentally rename a header or rename a file, and suddenly the links are broken. And this can really help speed up catching those types of problems. All of this is happening locally, so it is only checking paths to local files. It doesn't try to go to any websites that you have that you're referencing. So it's only doing it for links in your current workspace.
Cool. Okay, well, we got a nice, great feature. So definitely, some fans here. I actually have a question. So, we saw Joyce did some of the VS Code for the web. You're currently in the desktop VS Code. Would this Markdown link validation also work on the web?
Yeah. So I think for the web, writing Markdown on the web it's a great use case because you can just use it to take quick notes, for example. And all of this should work on the web as well. So if you're writing your notes on Markdown or just maintaining documentation or even just making a simple change to your README, all of this link validation should also go and kick in. So that works on vscode.dev, or if you go to github.dev and press dot to start editing something, it should work there as well.
A lot of people don't know about the dot, that you can just go to GitHub Repo dot and then boom, github.dev. Okay, so let's see. Oh yeah. Do you want to demo it?
So just go press dot. Now we're setting up our web editor. It should be done in a moment here.
Yeah, so literally all Matt did was hit dot on that repo and then boom, it will load.
Yeah, and I haven't loaded recently, so I'm on the current insiders build. You can see that we've opened up the repository. We have a preview of the README file here. And if I actually go open the README itself, let me go down here. Then we should be able to go and create a link. Let's see if this is going to work. the repository. If I break this, I might have to turn on the feature. Oops. But this is a good example of how you can go and turn this on, and hopefully everything will actually work now. And you can see that, yes, we are correctly getting an error being reported here. So I didn't test this ahead of time, so it's good to see that this is actually working.
Yeah, love on the fly live demos. That's how you know it's trusty.
Yep.
One question on Markdown in general. Are you able to paste a screenshot directly into a Markdown file, or will you ever?
Not at the moment, unless you turn on an experimental feature, but it is something that is supported if you turn on that feature. And you can also drag and drop images into your Markdown, and it will go and insert those. So if I just go back to the, let's go back here. Let's say I wanted to insert an image, this image here. I can just drag and drop this, hold down Shift to actually insert it into the editor instead of opening the file. And then I can go and insert that link. And then the same would happen in the future for copying and pasting. You just have to turn on an experimental setting that will go and enable that.
Cool. Nice question. Okay, here's one where they've tried this, they enabled validation. There's some false positives when square brackets are used, but it's not supposed to be a link. Is it supposed to be like that? And
yes,
so I guess one unit. Okay.
Yeah, it is, because that could actually be a valid link, and it's impossible for us to tell if it's supposed to be a valid link or if it's actually just supposed to be square brackets. So if I was writing a link here, I could also just write it in the shorthand like this. And you can see that if I go and I break this, we're going to report this as an error. What you should do for this case to make it very clear to Markdown that this is not actually a link is escape the leading square bracket. Now, this is a case where we have to be a little bit more strict, but if your Markdown also just in the future happened to define, like let's say you had some text here, and then in the future somebody came along and just did this, this would suddenly turn into a link. So it's impossible for us to actually tell what is supposed to be a link and what is not just by looking at the square brackets. You have to escape the leading one to make it clear to us that, hey, this is not actually a link.
Okay, great question. Cool. Okay, so one person asked, what is a VS Code server? I'm not going to get you to answer that, but we do have some other videos on our YouTube channel. We'll put up the link for our YouTube channel at the end of this, and you can learn a little bit more about VS Code server, which is really cool. Okay, so one thing, we have a few minutes left. Like I said, people really like to kind of see like under the hood of how these features work. So how are you implementing these different Markdown features?
Yeah, so in this case, all of the Markdown features that we were just looking at, so like the IntelliSense, the link completion, things like being able to see the document outline where you can see all of the headers and the links, those are all being powered by a new Markdown language server that we created. So this is using the language server protocol. It is then powered by a separate library that lets you go and work with Markdown files. So if I go here and I say Markdown language service, and I'll save my README, this is actually the project, and it's all open source. We just released this a couple of months or so ago. This is the project that actually powers all of our Markdown support in VS Code. And the cool thing about this is that it is just normal JavaScript. Like you could go and consume this from your JavaScript library and do things like compute document links or document symbols. And then it can also be consumed by other editors, either in this form where it's a library or as a language server. So that is just talking the standard language server protocol, and you can go and consume this as well. So we're hoping that the community gets excited about this and starts contributing. We've already done some things like creating some quick fixes, for example, here, where I can go and extract this to a link definition. So now I've gone and created the definition at the bottom of the file here. And if there were multiple references to that link, those would all be extracted as well. So I think there's a lot of possibility for the Markdown tooling, and the link validation is something that we just turned on recently, but there's some other exciting things coming up as well.
Cool. And if people want to kind of learn a little bit more about that, do you have kind of a place to direct them to learn more about the Markdown language server?
Yeah, I put together a blog post covering the announcement. So you can go to that blog post. It's a good introduction to why we developed this and sort of the background about what it is and why it's split into two projects. And then you can go and check out the projects that we have. The one that I just showed, the Markdown language service, is probably the main one. So if you have an idea for some cool Markdown tooling, definitely go and file an issue over there. The way we're sort of thinking about it is that we're wanting to bring features from other programming languages to Markdown, because Markdown can have links and all these other fancy things. It's not just simple text. It does help to have some of these programming language-like features while writing it.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Anything else you want to touch on? This is a great demo.
No, I think that's it.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much. Always interested in hearing what's newest with Markdown language, and I'm sure we'll have you on in the future again to see even more.
Yep.
Thanks so much, Matt. All right. So one question we do have in the chat, not a big fan of the merge editor. I appreciate your passion. If you actually look at the release notes for this newest release, we do have this disabled by default right now. So we definitely took some feedback. Some people love this merge editor. Some people love the old version. So you now have to opt into the new 3-way merge editor. So if you are a big fan of that, make sure to opt in. But if not, you can always switch it off and go back to that old editor. So just a big plug there. Okay, so thank you all so much for joining. Thank you so much to the presenters. Great demos today. Always fun to hear firsthand about the features. And we appreciate all of y'all asking the questions in the chat so you can have that interaction with the VS Code team. Make sure if you like this video, you can actually watch it on replay on our YouTube channel, and you'll get access to a bunch of other videos like things about the VS Code server, things about Jupyter Notebooks, anything VS Code. You'll find videos about it on our YouTube channel. We also post shorts there, and we cross-post those to our TikTok channel. So we post, 3 to 4 TikToks a week and YouTube shorts. So make sure to also follow us on TikTok if you want to see us, show cool tips and tricks, but also just kind of make cringy memes and be funny there. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. Thank you to the presenters. We will see you next week for another live stream and next month for another release party. Thanks all.